Discover the Our MedTech Lives podcast, where industry experts share their career stories, key achievements, and insights into overcoming challenges in the medtech field. Hosted by Zilko Rima and Kash Ikram.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Our MedTech Lives, Series 4. Today we have Dr. Amel Havkic, who is a hospital leader, but also a consulting partner to medtech companies. He helps founders and CEOs to improve their products and build companies with impact that provide shareholder value. He has founded multiple companies, healthcare companies, venture projects, including EvoMed Consulting, which provides medical expertise to medtech companies. So without any further ado, welcome Amel.
Pleasure being here.
Pleasure to have you.
Welcome. Let's get to know you a little bit, Amel. Tell us something about yourself, your background, and why you wanted to become a doctor first.
My background is, I think it would be a polycareer if someone would to describe it. I think it's going to be a big thing in the future, but I always wanted to be a doctor. As far as I remember thinking, running around, looking for hurt animals. And when I was, how old was I? 12 or so. Dr. House came on. And then everything was set in stone. Never went away from that path since. Although I've been asked on a regular how long I still plan on practicing. But the plan up until now is to keep on practicing. Although I'm doing the other things as well, and the other things just as mentioned. So mainly I'm a business advisor for MedTech. And we advise on patient safety and also market positioning. To put it in one sentence, we do have some adjacent telemedical solutions. We have some other new healthcare ways of delivering healthcare in Germany specifically. So we are all over the place.
You are based in Germany, right? And your company as well.
Yes, we're based in Frankfurt, the gateway to Europe.
Fantastic. So as well as being a medical doctor, you started to launch these companies on the side. Tell us about the first one, what you were doing, how that came to be.
Well, before I was freelancing, and pretty much the reason why I decided on going into the consulting space was, as for many, I think, frustration, right? I often say frustration leads to innovation. So this is also something that caught me. Ultimately, what ended up happening is that we were spending hours and hours in the hospital trying to fight our way through non-intuitive medtech solutions, which caused a lot of frustration on the staff side. There's quite a few names of colleagues and residents that I would remember who ultimately quit medicine because of the burnout, which is sometimes even improved, or data shows clearly that the burnout rates are higher if the solutions that we're using are not as natural to use.
Right.
On the other hand, we saw all of these amazing solutions actually never really taking hold in the daily clinical life. And reason for that were actually similar. So we put the EvoMed in the middle of those two worlds, trying to act as something like a translator, if you want.
Okay. Interesting. And what kind of doctor are you? Maybe we should have asked you earlier. Yeah.
It's a long story. So I have actually 4 specializations.
Okay.
Whoa.
Fantastic.
And an MBA. So I'm a specialist for internal medicine, pneumology, intensive care, and emergency care. And
so you never sleep?
I'm a doctor. I don't sleep. I work on coffee.
So you run from the thoracic unit to the eye unit and swing by the ICU on your way home. Okay, very good.
Pretty summed up. I mean, oftentimes also I get asked with all of these different projects how they tie in together. But when you look at it, just like you described right now, it's pretty much an ecosystem of it's adjacent fields. So one profits from the other. So I'm trying to build out that ecosystem, if you...
Wow. Fantastic.
That's interesting. And out of curiosity, how is your employer reacting to your plans? I mean, normally hospitals, they are still quite strict, right? Either you are working here or you do your own business, but I think you have a perfect match.
I'm one of the few lucky ones who is allowed to work into a clinic which really values innovation. I work in the St. Elisabethen Hospital in Frankfurt, and we're part of the University Thoracic Center. So we basically split our cases between our hospital and the university. And because obviously university innovation, high standards, it was something that I got in with an open visor, so to say. Everyone knew what I was doing. It wasn't a secret anymore. And it actually ties into the whole ecosystem idea. I do have a private practice as well.
For the weekends, something for the weekends.
Almost weekend Fridays, and all of my patients are asking me why I'm Friday evening still like in the practice. And I said, like, I do this only today, but it's again that ecosystem idea that you can reach the patients before they, or the people before they even become patients, with education and similar things, then guide them through the pre-clinic, if necessary, clinic, and then all the way through the ICU, long-term rehabilitation, all the way to the other side, back into life. And for that, we need good workflows. We need help with everything we do. Documentation needs to get easier. Systems need to communicate. So this is the bigger picture of how that all ties into me trying to help medtech companies understand the reality of health.
Yeah, Dr. House has a lot to answer for. Let's put it that way. You trashed your life almost. So I saw that you were in-house medical director for OxyCare, and I know this is a job that many doctors look for in pharma and medtech, right? So perhaps you can outline, how that came about, and what does a medical director do in a medtech company?
That's a very good question. Initially, OxyCare wanted to diversify their offering, and were looking for someone who can help them understand these intricacies. And then they reached out to me in a very, very pleasant way, which is also sometimes different when talking to industry, but it was extremely pleasant. We had quite a few discussions. So back then, I was working as a freelancer for MedTech. And then after the project was set up, they reached out to me to help get that project to life. And as a medical director, my job is pretty much to distill all the relevant medical findings, state-of-the-art science into their daily operations. This was actually one of the first things we did, is that we started educating their staff on big scale. They have over 200 employees, 160 working outside Außendienst in German, delivering the products and similar things. So what we did is we took the complicated medical lingo and give it to them basically as a tool to help guide this whole process. When new products are onboarded, they ask for our opinion. When new projects are initiated, we run the analytics on that to see, does it make sense? Does it fit into the whole ecosystem? Or is this something which is out of scope or so far away from the core competencies that it will just eat resources? So we are actually trying to be a guide to those companies to get them where they want to be in a safe and fast manner.
Mel, you often talk about bridging clinical realities and innovation. What does it mean really in practice? It sounds good.
Well, if it works, it is also good.
Yeah.
It ties into what I said earlier. So the reality is that medtech is a very complex field with a lot of different shareholders. And healthcare in general is. But medtech is maybe a bit more complicated because you have on one side some technology that you need to get to work to function, and then on the other hand you have the user, often, which sometimes is the patient, but oftentimes also medical specialists or medical experts. So what ends up happening is that the way these two think don't always align. I'm a firm believer of intelligent solutions, right? Clinical decision support, style of interfacing with experts. Because I hope my colleagues don't hate me too much for saying this, even on air, but being a doctor is similar to every other job. You have the bell curve, right? And not everyone is a top performer. But if you want to even that out and really be able to give the best possible care to everyone, you need help from technology. So technology sometimes is interrupting.
Mhm.
Everyone, I like the example of autocorrect. You're trying to do something important, write a message, but you get interrupted all the time because autocorrect is correcting or falsely correcting what you're doing. So you not only end up interrupted, but you need to go back. You need to now correct again. Then maybe he does the same again.
Yeah.
So when you get a new device, you turn it off. And a similar type of behavior is also present in everyday clinical life. We find workarounds all the way to foreseeable misuse. So use systems in a way which is not intended, which then obviously breeds risks for the patients. And so this is what I mean when I say with clinical reality. I'm just trying to help systems be as intuitive as possible from a doctor's or from a user's perspective.
So as a doctor, you know how to diagnose the patient. As an MBA business graduate, you know how to diagnose the company, right? So with this dual background, how does this shape your approach, and what makes EvoMedic different from other consulting firms?
I think that is a very interesting aspect that I was under valuing before. So I was born and raised in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not in Germany. And I came to Germany in 2013 after I became a doctor. And one of the reasons I left Bosnia was that independent of how good the work was that I was doing, in the end, the patient didn't really profit from it, or oftentimes didn't profit from it because the economic situation in the country, because the availability of care was just not existent. So
Mhm.
actually, from early on, I was aware that empowering the delivery of healthcare in a sustainable way is looking at the bigger picture of healthcare, an extremely important point, and which ultimately led me to come to Germany, where while I was still busy with the work in the trenches, it was way easier because obviously you had the you could tap into resources. But the more specialized I got and the more expensive the care got that the patient was receiving, and we're talking ICU, we're talking long-term respiratory therapy, sometimes 6 months, 1 year. So long-term ventilator therapy, really where it becomes a burden on the patient, but also on the economic side. So with I became interested into understanding the healthcare economics, so to say, what is happening in the background, how is this shaping actually the way we deliver or think about care. And the realization that I came to is that good care needs more than just good doctors. It needs to be sustainable. It needs to somehow pay for itself, because otherwise you will run into problems sooner or later. It needs industry, which produces solutions who help exactly this dynamics, and that's how ultimately EvoMed became, I would say, a place on the crossroads between all of those things.
Mhm.
With what makes us different is that we're still practicing physicians, all of us, all of our consultants. We are as well in the daily work, understand
Mhm.
what's the struggle there, and also understand what's the struggle from the outside. And you take a doctor out of the hospital, he's an expert for exactly 73 days,
Mhm.
because this is the time that healthcare knowledge needs to double, and afterwards you
Really?
can, in my opinion, although this might cause a few more colleagues to hate me, but it makes you not an expert anymore.
Don't worry
But
about the
Amel,
hate.
I'm just surprised that you said all of the people in your company are doctors. So are you planning to mix with industry experts or reimbursement experts or market access experts, whoever you need?
That is a very good point. So our consultants are medical experts, and this is why our business model is medical expertise as a service. This is how I like to frame it. But the healthcare system is so complex that one company alone, unless you're huge, cannot sustain all of those important things. So what we value, and it's also a point in our framework, is cooperation. We are actively cooperating with companies who are specialized in, let's say, market access. I mean, that's one thing that we do on our own, but our regulatory, there we are on the risk management side. But when it comes to the classifications and similar things, we do support, but we do not run the whole show, so to say. If you need an expert in some other field, like I don't know, very special reimbursement law, so something which you need actually a lawyer for, we also cooperate on that. So it would be too much to say that we can do everything, but we know very well what we are good at, and that's where we try to excel, while for the others we are cooperating. This is
But you are the go-to company, so I could go to your company with every request and then you connect me with the right people or right companies.
Pretty much like that. We understand ourselves as guides, as I said. So we love to do introduction. We love to support the outcome in the end. So we do have quite a list of partners by now. And one thing which is very important for me, especially so for me personally, is that when we work with someone, that our values align. And I don't know if it already like broke through, but I'm a very firm believer of humanity in the healthcare environment, so as well humanity in medtech. It is technology, but we're still doing it for humans. We're not doing it to just build machines. And so we have this special type of, or I would say, natural selection. And the natural selection is that we attract people who are like-minded, because this is how we like I talk now with you here, is how we talk everywhere, and this is also how we do business. So when a corporation comes together through our company, you can be assured that the reasons why you would reach out to EvoMed will be echoing through all of the other interactions.
So the great thing is we had the opportunity to meet in Malta recently at MedTech World. So a plug for Dylan's meeting. It's a great meeting, by the way. Everyone look up MedTech World. In 2026, there will be in Hong Kong, in the Middle East, in Malta, and I believe also in the US. And I'm looking forward to going again. But when we got a chance to meet, you took us through your EvoMed StarMap process, right? So tell us about StarMap and how does it actually help medtech companies? And I think there was very much a focus on startups at MedTech World, right? So I saw straight away the benefit. But in your words, what's StarMap?
Good question. So the idea behind the StarMap is to provide navigation and guidance to startups to navigate in the healthcare space.
Right.
What that means in practice is, as we established, it's an extremely complex system, maybe even the most complex system that humans ever put together, with an incredible amount of stakeholders and people involved, regulatory, reimbursement, insurances. On the other hand, you have the care deliverers, you have the patients in the end, you have the operations, extremely complex.
Yes.
The research I did during my studies was, in fact, on the success factors in healthcare. And after enough repetitions, a pattern started to emerge, which ultimately ended up being the star map. It does look like a star constellation, so I found it very fitting to name it the star map. That's reason number one. And reason number two, it provides guidance, just like we use to navigate using the stars. But what it actually does is it helps companies measure and improve on those specific success factors in healthcare and find their position in the StarMap, so to say. You don't have to excel with 100 points in everything, right? Just like the EvoMed is not good in all of the points or not excelling. We have understanding and expertise, but we're not excelling in each of those points. But it's ultimately about alignment and orientation and to know where you are and where you want to go. And this is what the StarMap actually does. We took it a step further. The StarMap originates from my research, but now with AI being all over the place, we of course wanted to leverage it to be able to deliver that expertise faster, better, sometimes even in a self-assessment way. So we pretty much put together StarMap AI, which is now in the first step a self-assessment platform, which is free up until the end of the year. But I guess when we get on air, it will already be not free anymore. But this is pretty much what the StarMap does. It helps companies understand the complexities, position themselves, and discover where they're weak in order to improve and increase their chances to ultimately reach the patients. That's how it is intended.
Very smart. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and all the stars on the map were visible. But where do you think are the blind spots tech startups are facing?
The black holes. Where are the
Yeah,
black
the
holes?
black holes.
It's in the spaces in between.
Right.
It's a pretty fitting analogy, I think. What ends up happening is that the success factors ultimately end up in clusters. And the clusters follow the natural position of the specific founder or type of company, or let's call it the DNA of the company. I'm a firm believer that there's pretty much three types of medtech startup founders. That is the clinical startup founder. So the one who comes from, like me, it's a doctor or a physiotherapist or someone who comes from the medical side. The business founder who comes from the business side, maybe ex-consultant or similar things, or the technical founder, which knows about the technology and what the technology enables them to do. So somewhere in between there are the blind spots, because as you mentioned rightfully, for you, it was very visible why startups profit from it right away. But when you are in one of those three worlds, the founders often stand or get trapped into their cluster. So they're looking at the clinical side and say, when this works, everything will work out. The business founder says, okay, I just need sales and then it will work out. Or I just need funding. But we know from companies from the past, from IBM Watson Oncology or from Microsoft Health Vault, or that funding isn't a magical pill that you can just like throw money on the problems. It doesn't solve clinical adoption. So actually the blind spots are really in between. And that's why I say it's not like one factor which does the difference. It's actually all the factors combined and how they interact with each other. That's why I'm a big believer in alignment instead of just like the one magic bullet.
Yeah, I've even seen companies say the product didn't take off in this geographical region. Let's move it to this geographical region because the healthcare system is different. Maybe it's going to work there. I mean, from your experience, what are the common areas that you see medtech startups trip up or fall?
I think you literally mentioned the one of the most important points. Pretty much about like okay, let's do backtrack or start from the beginning. If you would to run a business that works, you ultimately need one thing, and that is that your product is used by the one it's intended for. And I oftentimes say that I view medtech as B2B to C, because ultimately it's used on the patients or for the patients, but it's prescribed or it takes a route through the doctor, which is not the end user. And the key point there is clinical adoption. We can take one of those examples we just mentioned. So IBM and Watson Oncology. I have a whole chapter in my book that I'm writing at the moment about this. But IBM Watson Oncology was an extremely good technology, which just misunderstood how important it is to think like a physician when you launch a medtech product. So what ended up happening is that although it performed actually good and there went, data is hard to get, 3 to 4 billion funding was put into Watson Oncology, but doctors were avoiding it. They were insecure about what was about the suggestions it was spitting out. It didn't fit the way that they did. And so what founders oftentimes think is that they just need to educate the users more. They need to move it maybe to a different geography. Maybe this wasn't the right area to use it. But I, as a clinician, naturally see it from the other side. Every innovation, everything new that you introduce a clinician to, he needs there's a learning curve. And when you need to learn something new, you need to invest time, you need to invest energy, you need to invest resources ultimately. So this is scarce when looking into healthcare. So the solutions need to be gradual improvements, in my opinion, not too far from the users. They're intended to that they feel like something's completely new.
Right.
You can push them there gradually, and there's this now, and there's this now, and this is the new feature, and this is what it can do now. But if you completely overroll them with new things, they will not adopt it. And because the different regions, so it has maybe implicitly to do something with the geography, because we don't perform medicine in the same way everywhere.
Yeah.
For
It's
me,
not
from
paid
Bosnia,
for in the same way everywhere. So that's one. But so you're saying don't take too big a leap from the status quo, right?
Yeah, what I
exactly.
see is where we struggle. I mean, I've been a lot in startup environments that whenever you change workflow in the team for the doctor, then it's a massive change and it takes a long time to change it. If it's just an upgrade in product, you don't change anything, it's easy to implement, right?
Resonates a lot. And I would say there is when we think back to the iPhone, let's say, it's not MedTech, but why did the iPhone change the whole smartphone game? Because they completely went away from the input, which is kind of artificial. Back in that day, it was some numbers, and you had to repeatedly click them to get to get a word together. Or even with Blueberry, for instance, it was a keyboard. But what the iPhone did is they tried to make it more intuitive. So they said we don't want any pens. I recently watched the release or the release from with back then with Steve Jobs, and how he was explaining it. And you don't use a stylo, you don't use a pen, you use your fingers. So you use something which is very natural, and we are naturally resisting. Everyone is naturally resisting change, which feels not natural to the way we do things. That's just how
Now
we.
At the end, they still introduced a pen for the iPad, because I remember that I was asking at the time in a shop, and the guy there said, we will never ever have a pen because Steve Jobs said you have to do everything with your finger. But at the end, they had to adapt a little, right? And to compromise.
Yeah. Well, now we know why our funds were evolved in the first place. It took
Yeah.
a million years for technology to catch up, but we found a use for them in the end.
Yes, but that pen analogy that you say, I don't even think it's so. So using the eyes that I look through now in MedTech, I don't even think it's that much of something for a surprise, because the phone, the iPhone, is supposed to be something that we're daily with, right? All the time. It's in our pockets all the time. So it was supposed to be an interface for that. But what was the iPad supposed to be? A notepad, right? So
Yes.
when you write in a notepad, you use a pen. And it's still, the idea behind it is the same. You use the device, which is natural. You want to write down something, so you write with a pen.
So, Amel, you mentioned several times AI now. So let's talk a little bit about AI. How do you see that changing the medtech landscape?
AI is amazing technology. I'm a huge fan since day zero, actually. And when the LLMs
When
came
was
out,
day zero for you?
day zero was for me, if I remember right, 18 or 19 was the first time that I saw an AI interpretation of radiologic imaging. I was at the ERS. I don't remember where it was at that time, but there was a whole session about chest imaging. And it was the data that was, I always am a bit skeptic when data is shown, because depending on how you interpret it, right? But
Mhm.
the data was unbelievable, and it made sense because it is something which is a repeatable process. It's pattern recognition ultimately, and this is what radiologists train over a long, long time. And it became better and better. Back then, I already knew that the world is going to or world of physicians is going to change.
Mhm.
And then when the LLMs came out, I think I noticed something like a gold rush. It democratized tools, it democratized knowledge, it democratized a lot of good things. So everyone was trying to use it to place themselves somehow, to profit from it when the big boom comes. I do think we are over the hype because we see the limitations. It's great to think about it. It's great to still have it present and use it the way it is supposed to be used.
Mhm.
But here's the catch. I am on a campaign to rebrand AI in healthcare from artificial intelligence to augmented intelligence. Because this is pretty much, in my opinion, how it's supposed to be used. It is not supposed to be replacing anyone in healthcare. What it's supposed to do is it's supposed to even out the bell curve that I mentioned before. It's supposed to help every interaction with the patient be the best interaction possible. And I think when looking at it through that lens, some things maybe become obsolete
Mhm.
and are not the right way to go, and others become more there's again the clinical adoption in all of those things, because there's a reason why we have tax holes or gaps in the. It's because those who are using them are also sometimes the ones making the decisions about them, so they will never die out. But and similar is also when it comes to adoption in clinical settings. If you want your solution to be welcomed, it needs to help and support the clinicians in the way that they do things, rather than trying to replace them, even maybe with force.
Interesting. I mean, there is a lot of hype around AI and AI in healthcare, and I've attended some of the meetings, and there's a lot of companies saying there's stuff coming, but it's kind of really vague, right? And I think we're still struggling to have that one example which says, "Hey, this is the iPhone of augmented intelligence in medtech," right? But I think it's coming. I think it's coming around the corner. We're waiting to see for that big breakthrough. And then the other interesting argument is it going to come from the big companies, the strategics, or is it going to be a small startup that comes along like the iPhone and blows everybody away? You any thoughts on that from what you see?
I would love to hear your thoughts first, because
Okay.
I do have an opinion on this.
I think that the larger companies are probably too anchored to their product portfolios and are often looking for how do we use AI, augmented intelligence, artificial intelligence to sell more of the current product or make the current product maybe easier or better to use. But you limit yourself when you only look through the lens of your current legacy portfolio. Whereas a startup that has no legacy portfolio has really a blank piece of paper, right? And if you have a blank piece of paper, you can pretty much say, well, what's the biggest problem that needs to be solved? And let's go straight for that, right? And I've helped some students who are working on this in AI who have no medical background but come from the computer world, see an issue is presented to them, and then they engage their brains on that, and what they come up with just blows me away. So I think the smaller companies without a legacy portfolio are the ones to watch. That would be my strategic bet.
Very interesting point. So I think you pretty much set the stage for how it works today. Because bigger companies have longer decision cycles, they're a bit limited in what they can do. On the other hand, the startups, they can get new things on the market, but we all expect it to be something which is I would like to know if you agree. We expect the first AI solution which really changes the way we think about something, let's say radiologic chest X-ray or chest radiology, to be something very specialized. And if you have something which is very specialized, you are necessary. You need to cooperate. So what I think, if this or that, I think yes.
Yes.
I think both. I think it will be a startup which will have a great idea, and then one of the big players which see their ecosystem profiting from it will pick it
Yes.
up and nurture it. This is and I think the root of it, the seed will be indeed a small company, maybe even an individual who will use Lovable to create an MVP or something like that. And then one of the big players who have the possibility of implementing it into the distribution network and something which already exists will
Scaling
pick
it.
it up and make it big.
I think because we expect a lot of innovation coming from software, right? This is a big hurdle in hospitals to get into when you are not known, you are a small company. Or I guess if you cooperate or however you do the cooperation, but you come under the umbrella of a big player, it's so much easier to get into the ecosystem of a hospital and to scale up.
Yeah.
100% agree.
So, Amel, who should be contacting EvoMed Consulting? Who is your ideal customer? Who would you like to hear this and get in touch with you?
So obviously everyone who is trying to bring a solution to the patient.
Mm-hmm.
To sum it up, it doesn't have necessarily to be a startup. Most of our clients, or many of our clients, specifically the bigger ones, are obviously bigger companies. They're partially global corporates. And the reason for that is that every new product acts like a startup.
Yes.
That's pretty much it. When they want to launch a new product, you still have the same hurdles, you still have the same things you need to go through. And our system and our way of doing things, our process, it's pretty much process, is something which is actually developed to nurture this initial idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. And this is and another interesting thing that I discovered in Malta actually was that it was extremely interesting also for investors when they want to know, should we invest in a specific startup and how to make the best use of our funds.
Mm-hmm.
Is also something which is actually perfect for the StarMap when it comes to that. And the latest, when the product is so big that it has patient risk adjacent to it in some type, way, or form, we're the right people to talk to.
Yeah. I think if you have a startup, they should come and use the StarMap, find out where the constellations and the black holes are in their product area. It can be very enlightening for sure.
Amel, you said you can cover 4 specialties as a doctor. You have your own startup company, EvoMed. You are consulting for a MedTech company, and you are still so young. So what's next for you and what's next for EvoMed?
What's next for me? Good question. So I would like, for me personally, I want to continue being a doctor. I don't think you can take the doctor out of the hospital, but the hospital out of the doctor, kind of thing. I will definitely continue to practice. I would like the EvoMed to grow or become known to really be the Kickstarter for those ideas. That's what's next for us. We're also looking now to diversify a bit towards multiple multipliers, for instance, incubators, accelerators, or even investors, because they don't have one-to-one contact with startups, but one-to-many. So this is the next steps that we plan. And I don't know if you noticed, but we're much for co-creation when it comes to that. So if anyone thinks that if anything I said resonates, or if anyone thinks that they could profit from something like that, they're more than welcome to reach out. And yeah, for me personally, there's one thing I would like to do. I would like to have a real vacation at one point without working on the side.
I hear you. I hear you on that one. Absolutely fascinating conversation. Silke and I have both seen the StarMap. We were super impressed. That's why we were really keen to get you on the podcast and talk about it. I think, it's a real eye opener for anyone who's developing a new product and wants to see how well it matches the clinical environment in which it's going to go into, right? So, Amel, thank you for that. But let's ask you the question, like, What are the three things that you know now that you wish you had known then? Then could have been when you were in short trousers. It could have been 1 hour before we came on this podcast. So up to you.
So one thing which I would like to have known when I started in healthcare generally is I would have loved to understand back then that only the full healthcare ecosystem can make a real impact.
Right.
I was under the the dream that as a doctor you can save lives. You can, but you're limited by systems, by surroundings. So that is one thing. Another thing that is I would like to have known back then is that it is a marathon and not a sprint. Maybe here and there I should have
Yes.
taken some time to breathe and not like chase one specialty after the other. But that brings me to the last thing, which I definitely know now, and that is that family is definitely the most important thing in our lives. I'm a father. My daughter is almost 2 years.
Nice.
If I would have known how awesome it would be, I would become a father with 25, and then by the time she's out, I still have energy to chase after my life and other things. Now things are a bit more different. So those would be the
Those are
three
very
things.
good learnings. Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Amel. I think, we met in Malta. It was super impressive to see your booth, your team as well. I mean, you are not alone. You have a brilliant team. And now to have you on our podcast, it was a big learning for us as well, right, Kesh?
Yes, 100%. Really appreciate it. Love what you're doing. And if anyone's interested in putting their product, their idea through your StarMap, they should definitely get in touch. So appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here, and hope to see you guys in Dubai and latest in Malta again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning into our MedTech Lives. You have been listening to Zilka Rima and Tash Ikran. We're committed to bringing you insights and stories that inspire and inform the medical community. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network.